century. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce a very good friend of mine. He's a renowned civil rights and constitutional attorney, Daniel Sheehan. Of course, you all know that he did the Pentagon Papers representing the New York Times. He also did the Silkwood case, nuclear case. He's done many civil rights cases, the KKK case in Greensboro and others, but he's worked with us since the 1990s and early 2000s as a constitutional advisor and attorney who's very accomplished and was part of how we came to the assessment that the national security state operations that are unacknowledged special access projects are in fact breaking the law. They're illegal and they're rogue, and therefore all the witnesses and all the material we have that have come from classified sources, we have been able to bring out to the public with impunity. And to this date, no one has challenged that assessment. So I'd like to welcome Daniel Sheehan.
Well, I have the good fortune of getting you while you're totally exhausted. And so this is sort of the closing argument, if you will, of the day. We've covered an awful lot of different subjects here, kind of different strands that you've seen. There's like a whole dozen different things that we've talked about. And what I want to do is I just want to kind of bring it together here, sort of at the end of the day, and try to be clear about what the implications are of what we're talking about here. That we know that one of the fundamental questions that we've got, that we all share, is whether or not an actual other intelligent civilization exists, an extraterrestrial civilization of another intelligent and highly technologically developed, but categorically distinct species, or one or more exist. And this is a fundamental question that has brought us all together. I think that basically the reason we're all here together is because we have had a different kind of unique response to standing out under the stars. You know, when we look up into the nighttime sky and see a star pulsing in the distance, we have, since we've been small children, experienced that as an existence of another star with other planets and other beings, and that we've had a deep kind of overwhelming sense that what we're doing here in our day-to-day lives is not in harmony with that reality. That we've got this kind of bizarre reductionist view of reality, that we end up, drawing, lines in the sand and threatening to kill someone if they come onto our property, and use our intelligence to sort of dig into the earth and dig up the minerals and develop bullets and weapons to do that. And it is so incongruous with this dimension of reality that we have known about and experienced since we were children. And so that ultimate question, we have, I think, had an answer to that in our own conscience since we've been small. And that it's baffling that other people have not acknowledged this. The schools we go to, the churches we go to, the political parties that we all participate in have never wanted to acknowledge that. They stay completely fixated on this kind of reductionist view of reality. So this is one of the most important issues that we're dealing with now. And we've crossed, I think, into a new era on that within our own lifetimes. Some of our lifetimes are a little longer than others here. But I remember distinctly when I first raised this issue, when I was a legal counsel at the Jesuit headquarters in Washington, D.C., that I was there when, as many of you may have heard about, is I got contacted by the Congressional Research Service, Science and Technology Division. They've been asked by President Carter to prepare 2 classified reports, one on the existence of extraterrestrial life, and the second one on whether or not at least some of these UFO encounters might actually represent vehicles from another civilization, an extraterrestrial civilization. And I was contacted by Marcia Smith, who was the head of the Science and Technology Division of the Congressional Research Service, and asked whether I, as legal counsel at the Jesuit National Headquarters Office of Social Ministry, whether I would be able to get access to the Vatican Library for the study and secure the information they had on these 2 subjects. And I brought it to Father Bill Davis, who was my immediate superior. I was a candidate for the Jesuit priesthood at the time. And I went to Father Davis and explained to him why I thought this was so extraordinarily important that we ought to respond to this in a positive way. And he convened the assistant provincials for all 10 provinces in the United States who were in charge of social ministry, and we got their consent to doing this. And that's an extraordinarily important step that took place there with the largest single order of the Catholic Church, the largest single denomination in all of Western civilization, to agree that we would take the step of going forward and trying to get the Vatican to provide this information. And that was when I first became involved as a grown-up, actually, and a professional in trying to do something about this. And that's how it started. And so I became counsel to the special counsel to the investigation and study for the president, and ended up being therefore invited to go to talk with the top scientist in SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, to deliver a closed door seminar to them on the theological implications of contact with an extraterrestrial civilization, which it turns out they had been seriously concerned about, as it turns out there at SETI. So I said, well, look, just let me ask you this then. Whatever the nature of this tribunal might be, can you tell me whether either or both of the following questions are going to be at issue here, as a matter of fact? Number one, whether or not another highly intelligent and highly technologically developed, but distinctly non-human species exists in extraterrestrial life here. And secondly, whether at least some of these vehicles that are seen around in the UFO phenomenon might actually be a vehicle from another civilization, an extraterrestrial civilization. Relman, who was the chairman, said, well, absolutely, those 2 issues are at stake here. And it's totally ridiculous for anybody to believe either one of those things is true. Now, this is Harvard University in 1994 is making that type of declaration, right? And from between that time in 1994 and then in 2009, at that whole period of time, it turns out that you have the Vatican, the Jesuit order, convening a gathering of world scientists to come to the Vatican, to Castel Gandolfo, where the papal observatory is, spending a whole week briefing the cardinals on the developments are. And they come out and they go to the Vatican and deliver an official statement on the part of the Roman Catholic Church, saying that in light of the discovery of more and more of these new planets, these exoplanets, that it now appears that much sooner than we'd anticipated, that we're going to discover that there's life elsewhere in our universe. And therefore, the time has arrived for the beginning of a very serious conversation among our human family about the philosophical and theological implications of this discovery. And so that's an official statement from the Roman Catholic Church here in Western civilization. And so now we have the situation where the United States Pentagon is announcing, basically on the front pages of the New York Times, that yes, the UFOs are real. They're real. And yet you hear this bizarre response from them all saying, but we can't figure out what they are. We don't know what this really is. And so that we've heard the information today about what the potential implications of that type of a situation is, those implications are. That they know that they're not Russian. They know that they're not Chinese. So we have a couple of questions in front of us here that we really need to take away from our discussion today, and all the thousands of people that are listening to this out around the world, is that there are some pivotal questions here. We now know that the institutions of the major Catholic Church in Western civilization are taking the position that it's now clear that there's extraterrestrial life. Now, for the very first time, now the Pentagon is acknowledging that UFOs are real. The question that we have in front of us here, and the evidence is starting to roll in on this, is, has the United States government come into physical possession of any of these vehicles? And there's ample evidence now that is perfectly clear that we've come into possession of some of these, right? And there are particular instances that we all talk about of Roswell in the 1945 crash and the others. And the next question is there any evidence that we are engaged in some effort to duplicate these, to back engineer and generate these things so that we would end up having access to this technology? And there's growing evidence that they clearly have been trying to do this. So the big question here that you've gotten posed to you today, with evidence that you may not have heard in the past, one of the pivotal questions is, have they succeeded in doing this? Or are they still trying to do it? Like, in the deep background interviews, yeah, we haven't been able to do it. Yeah, you're right. You caught us. We got some of these vehicles and we've been trying to do it, but we haven't really been able to do it yet. So that fact question is one that's pivotal. If you were a jury and you had to try to decide when you go back into the jury room to try to figure out the answers to these questions, you have to ask yourself, is there evidence now that is going to cause you to be convinced that we have, in fact, some of us in this country, in some governing elite circles, have actually mastered the technology so that we're actually flying these things around? So that we now are confronted, all of us in this room and people that are listening around the world are actually confronted for the first time in our life with, if we were out on a dark, starry night and a big UFO came around and landed in the field like this, we would, instead of saying, fantastic, great, I feel like Betty and Barney Hill, I'm getting set to be able to go and meet people from an extraterrestrial civilization. And you find out they're US military people. I mean, what a bummer that is, I mean, what a bummer. I mean, these people are messing with our life ambitions of getting to have that experience. And here we are dealing with guys in camouflage or something. So we need to be able to answer that question. Okay. And if we answer that question, that they have developed the technology and they are flying around and presenting themselves, and they know perfectly well that the response that our people are having is, oh my God, great, their UFOs are here, that we can see them. We finally get we know that they're doing that. The second question that is posed to us here today in our discussions is, why in the world are they doing that? Why are they doing that? Why haven't they revealed this technology? Why are they spending hundreds of billions of dollars building big rocket ships, to put people in capsules and send them up under rockets to go to the moon, and multi-billion-dollar programs that they're lauding and praising and getting us all cheering them going up into space with these gigantic flames rolling out of the bottom of their rocket, and blowing up people in the Challenger and getting people killed. I mean, why are they doing that? If that second question is answered that way, that yes, they've mastered the technology, and yes, they're flying around, and they know they're giving us all the impression that these are UFOs. So that question is posed. The third question was, why in the world would they be doing that? These are the three questions we brought to you today. You know, that have they mastered the technology? And if they have, are they flying it around and giving us the impression that they're UFO people all around? And why are they keeping us from having this technology? Why is that? Who are these people that are doing this? And these are the three fundamental questions that have been posed to us here today. And I know that for long periods of time, I've been, I'm counsel to the Disclosure Project and counsel to the Citizens Disclosure and counsel to the Jesuits and have been counsel to John Mack. I've been doing this over all the years now. And now I'm counsel to you. Trying to make it clear what the clear questions are that you need to ask and figure out yourself, along with all of us as a community, what the answers to these questions are. Because we're faced with a very serious situation right here, where there are people in good faith that have devoted their lives to this, who believe that these people are engaged in trying to set up a hoax, a false apparent invasion or incursion of some sort on the part of an extraterrestrial civilization to try to get our human family, led by the United States ruling elite, to view all extraterrestrials as a horrible threat, and to establish this meme in our minds for the next 5,000 years in the future. This is an extraordinarily important period of time in all of our lives, in the lives of our whole human family. This is going to determine how our relationship is established with the extraterrestrial civilization that we all are convinced exists, and that we all have to deal with this. We all have to try to figure out how to raise our personal consciousness. We have to learn how to raise the consciousness of our religious institutions. We have to be able to raise the consciousness of our governing institutions. And the bottom line is we have to learn to raise the consciousness of ourselves as citizens, as individuals, and know that this is a key thing that we have to do. Because the fact of the matter is that we have to merit our relationship with the extraterrestrial civilization. Because as you might well imagine, they've got some fundamental questions about the worthiness of our whole species. And there's a lot of evidence that raises fundamental questions about this. And we've all gone along through our lives, some more or less, ignoring that challenge that we all have, to somehow participate in the process of helping to raise the consciousness of our human community here. But the fact of the matter is, the issue is now put to us in some pretty stark terms, because we have now, for the first time, you've got, Mark Rubio, who was the chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, asking for a full briefing from the Office of Naval Intelligence now on what their position is about this phenomenon. And we know that the person who's the executive director of that new UAP, task force inside the Office of Naval Intelligence has told them in closed door sessions that the majority of his staff believe that these are off-world vehicles. That's what he has said. Okay? And so that we've got to deal with the fact that there are low consciousness political structures of the United States Senate Intelligence Committee, yes, low consciousness institutions, who are now in the process of thinking how to respond institutionally to that type of a communication. And there are people inside the military who are trying to tell them that this constitutes a threat, because they find it in their institutional interest to be able to get billions and billions of dollars of more tax money so they can have more jobs. Now this is extremely low consciousness functioning here. So our question is how can we, as a community, as a portion of our human family, mobilize from this moment here onward to try to help raise our entire consciousness on this subject so that we can, in fact, become the messengers of an alternative way of approaching this whole thing. And as you know, the medium is the message to a large extent. We can't be hostile, we can't be antagonistic, we can't be accusatory, we can't be confrontational. And so we've got to be able to think about these things ourselves. And what it really comes down to is we have to answer for ourselves the profound philosophical and theological questions that are posed to our whole human family, which are posed to us as well. And that's the discussion that we need to inspire. And that's what we're trying to do here this weekend, is to encourage this conversation among ourselves so that it's no longer just some of us who devoted 50 years or more to this to come and talk with you and give you the information and stuff. The fact is, this has to be a collective activity on our part now. We have to respond to the call to figure out what the philosophical and theological implications are and internalize our own answers to those things and go forward as messengers of this, and at the minimum, we have to move very aggressively to stop the shifting of weapons up into space. We've just come out of an administration that is now actively advocated and set up a U.S. Space Force, a military space force to go into outer space and to bring weapons and to try to establish full spectrum dominance up over the planets in our solar system. And we know that that's what they're trying to do. So we've got to roll that back. We've got to roll back. That's brand new. It's only been here for a matter of months, right? We need to roll that back as best we can, and we need to go forward to help support the setting up of this treaty on the part of the nation states of our planet to ban the movement of weapons into space, first by banning the basing of any weapons in outer space, but also later prohibiting even the carrying of any of these weapons into space. And I don't think that we need to emphasize the fact that the extraterrestrial civilization isn't going to allow us to do it, because that's only going to inspire fear and antagonism and a dialectical perception of the extraterrestrials. What we have to do is we have to make that argument ourselves. We have to make that argument to our own fellow citizens and everybody that we shouldn't be doing this, that we can't be doing this. We cannot start our next thousands of years of experience with the extraterrestrial civilization on that footing. That we just can't do that. And so that's my attempt to try to draw it together for us to realize what the takeaway is from the beginning of our time here together. But there's a whole set of discussions that we have to have, among ourselves. It's not just a matter of us standing up here talking to you. It's a matter of you talking to us talking to each other, us talking to ourselves, of what we're going to do about this. Because this is a very serious situation. I've been in a lot of serious situations down through the years, having people come to say, we're having Jim Goodell of the New York Times legal counsel call me and say, Danny, I got to have a meeting with you right away. By the way, we've got 47 volumes of top secret classified Pentagon papers. What are we going to do with them? Which I said to him, the only thing you need to decide is how big the font should be on the front page of the New York Times tomorrow morning. But this is another situation. And I want to tell you that in every one of these situations, there's a small group of people who have to make some very serious decisions to change history here. To change history, not just to make history, because there's a momentum going now in the wrong direction here. So we've got to make history here. We've got to change the history that will happen without us. Okay, and this includes all the other people that are listening here today. Okay, and that's what our discussions are going to be for the rest of the time we're here, for these next few days together, to how we go about doing this. This is a practical question about a theological and philosophical issue. So that's what I would like to say. Okay?
All right, thank you, Danny. It was beautiful. And just for those who he didn't go through all of it, but he was actually taken into a facility when he was asked by folks to get some material together for President Carter, who had been denied access to these files and subject by outgoing CI Director George H.W. Bush, who served on this committee of 200 or 300 with Andrew Mellon and then later Senator John Warner. And I think one of the things that I remember you sharing was that you actually saw a file that had photos of a crashed ET craft that had writing on it. I think once you drew me the sort of hieroglyphic writing on it. And so this is all really very important information because it goes back decades and there are data point after data point and data point. And one of my big concerns is the discussion is always trying to recreate the wheel. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, it's now 2021. Are UFOs real? Are some extraterrestrial? Do we have advanced technologies? You know, I'm mocking it only because asked and answered, asked and answered. And the evidence is overwhelming. And the witness testimony and the documents and the drawings and this, it's all there. And what they want people to do is stay in a cul-de-sac, running around in a circle, debating the same questions. And that is a diversion. That is a DDT, as I talked about earlier. Don't buy into that. Don't go there. We need to start moving forward because there's a lost century here of technology, knowledge, enlightenment, peaceful planet, free energy, a just social world where there is no poverty, there's no pollution. And this is not utopian Pollyanna jibber jabber. This is fully able to be accomplished in our lifetime. And it could have been accomplished, ironically, before I was born. And I was born in 1955. So the problem is, how much longer are we going to be killing the planet and engaging in endless wars instead of coming together, not only as a human family? I want to add to what Paula Harris said about all of us being part of the human. That would have been great in about 1900. Too late for that. We're already being visited by advanced civilizations. So I want to close with this sort of a visualization for a moment. And all of you take a moment and consider the fact that if you're still awake, you're awake. And the ability, the human conscious spirit, the ability to be conscious, whereby you're awake, and you're awake, and you're awake. We always are filtering it and attaching it to our own individual selves. But there's this consciousness field, this essence, the spirit of the awake being that is in fact, and been proven to be, a universal field that is not limited by time, space, body, or individual. This aspect of ourselves, this is the universal being. And we are all that. And we are going to have to identify with that first, then human, and then white or black or gay or straight, or Catholic or Protestant or Sunni or Shia. And this is why, you know, I told the story a couple of times when the first time I was sitting with Demi Lovato, who's an actress and singer, and during all the rioting and what was going on in the country in the past year. And I said, you know, we're going to have to go deeper. It's not enough to just involve yourself in a subculture identity. Notice that within culture, it's cult. And I think we have to begin to go, if we cannot go beyond the tribalism of division, then we are destined to end up destroying everything, because we have to honor and look at how beautiful, it's like a beautiful garden with all kinds of different colors and shapes of flowers and plants and what have you. That's the human family. But within all those plants is the sap, the chi, the life, the energy that makes that life happen. And there is your point of commonality. And what's beautiful about that is that it's universal. So if there's the civilization that's out near Antares that exists, and read into that particular civilization, those beings are awake and they are conscious, and they're very different. I mean, look, if we're still fighting over our color, or whether we're gay or straight, or male or female, stuck in that kind of stuff for what now? Thousands of years? How are we ever going to have any semblance of peaceful relationship with these other civilizations? We have to find a point of commonality, of oneness that transcends even humanity. That is the big challenge we are facing. And so at the root of all of this, it's a deeply spiritual problem, not religious, spiritual, the essence of a spirit. And that is the conscious field and the awake being shining alike within all of us. And so when you look into the eyes of an extraterrestrial being, don't be freaked out that they look different from you. It's like people being freaked out that someone is a different color, or a different sexual orientation, or a different religion, or a different race or ethnicity. That is where they want you, the demagogues, the warmongers. They want everyone to stay at that level fighting. And what we have to do is transcend that and realize that there is this ineffable, but beautiful, and is closer to us than our life's vein aspect of ourselves that is a singularity of consciousness. And that is infinite. And that is operative fully within every sentient, awake being, whether it's human or extraterrestrial. Why is that important? Because unless we begin to go beyond what I call exo-racism, and Paula Harris was referring to this, they're the Nordics and they're the Greys and they're the, it's just this whole mythology of racism within this issue. And it is racist. We have to get into a post-racist era where not everything is filtered through your color or your religion or your ethnicity. Those are all sort of systems and identities that are very superficial. Because as a doctor, when I've seen people cut past the skin, they all bleed the same color. The brain is all the same within everybody. And deeper than that is this consciousness that is universal. And if we can connect to that, and it doesn't have to be through religious, fanatical things and what have you. It's simple. It's mindfulness. It's being aware of the mind and the consciousness and realizing, and this has been proven experimentally by Dr. John at Princeton and others, that conscious field isn't limited to space and time. And it's universal and infinite. And once we realize that, and if we go deep, connect to that aspects of ourselves, there are no aliens. They're all us, phasing and resonating throughout the cosmos as different sentient beings at different points on the path of enlightenment and of the drop of our individualities, returning to the ocean of the great being. That's the journey we're on. And so if we can really stay centered on that, we can go past racism and past human divisions and past exo-racism. Because exo-racism is what the people who manipulate us want us to go to. They want all of us to be united, but around another false dialectic, another false otherness. And that otherness this time is alien. And that's how they're going to continue to control humanity instead of us becoming free and enlightened and a civilization that's enlightened, an ugly future of conflict and division. And this is our choice. We can choose to be manipulated or not manipulated, to be awake or to be asleep. And so everyone listening, ultimately, it is our choice. And when the ET said a new world, if you can take it, implied in that, if you will choose to accept this new world of a peaceful planet without massive weapons, without division, but that's not enough. There has to be added this deeper realization that the conscious spirit within us is universal, and the consciousness within these other life forms is the same. And to kill one of them is to kill ourselves. And so we are all one people. And the motto, when I started on this journey in 1990, I founded the CE5 Contact initiative. And the motto that I developed was one universe, one people. There's actually one people. I use the word people to include not just Homo sapiens, but all intelligent, conscious, higher intelligent beings capable of going and out into space or around their own planet. Though we have to understand that there is one conscious being shining within all of us. And that is an operative philosophy that's ancient and isn't limited to this religion or that religion. This is an understanding that is post-religious in a sense, or pre-religious, because religions are organizations. It's not one political party or another political party. It's not one race or another race. It's not one species or another species. And I always want to leave people with this idea. We have been indoctrinated since we were born, everyone on this planet, to identify and be afraid of anything different from us. This goes back evolution, sort of evolution biology, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years of human experience. And we're a little bit hardwired that way, where, if it's a different tribe or a different entity, it's different, it's other, it could be a threat, it could kill us. So this is a human experience, and there's these epigenetic effects of our experiences that go through thousands of years that actually encode in our genes. But the reverse can happen, where we begin to accept another higher consciousness that's universal, and that will change our genes. That also lights up epigenetic fields. We'll talk about this week. That then leads to enlightenment and oneness and the end of war and conflict and to universal peace. So the foundation of having peace on earth and peace in the heavens is to have the great peace within and realizing we are all one people, one universe, one people. Thank you very much for all your help and support. And I will really appreciate it if everyone listening online can wait when you hear that we have completed this Cosmic Hoax documentary, that you, between now and then, network now with everyone you can to get it on every site possible, because it'll be free to release. And that's how we're going to get the message of peace, but also the message of a heads up to the public to not be fooled again. We've been fooled in the Iraq War. We were tricked into the Vietnam War. There's been war after war after war. This is the big one. This is the last card. We cannot be fooled on this one. And we're counting on, all of us are counting on each and every one of you to be ambassadors of the truth and ambassadors to peace. Thank you very much. God bless all of you.